Halloween
Forever.
Good evening, Stephen. I would say how you doing, but I know you're a little under the weather. So, how you feeling?
I feel bad. And so everybody else is going to feel bad too.
Yeah, you're just Steve's in a shit mood, you guys. Just wait. Just wait for his vitriol he's going to spew here. At least we got a good movie to talk about tonight. But before we get into that, Steve, got one for you real quick.
Uh-huh.
What do you call an Irishman who's always bouncing off the walls?
Yeah, that feels loaded.
What do you call that?
I don't know, Brian. I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass.
Rick O'Shea.
Gotcha.
Singles to a very Irish Minisode of Halloween's Forever. I'm Prime.
I'm Steve. Steve the Sick.
Yeah, Steve, you're sounding rough. You're popping cough drops. What flavor cough drops? You're always curious. Yeah, let's see the lemon honey or lemon ginger. That's the move. Anybody who's out there just sucking on like straight up menthol or even cherry, the fuck is wrong with you? All right,
cherry is for children. Although I do like cherry, I'm not gonna totally disregard it. But like cherry is for children, menthol is for maniacs, lemon gingy is for the real ones. Lemon honey's also for children. Lemon honey. It's like
lemon ginger is hard to find though. Sometimes I struggle to find that. I'll also fuck with a Ricola if I'm not feeling too good. I'll fuck with a Ricola, that herbal kind of weird combination. I don't hate. But we're not here to talk about specifically remedies for Steve's illnesses, although perhaps this movie was a remedy of sorts for your illness. We'll see. We are going to talk about a little Irish flicky from the year of our Lord 2024, a film called Frewaka, I believe is how you say it. I don't know that for sure, but I like to say it that way because that sounds like maybe something we'll be putting on T-shirts, hypothetically, if Fozzie Bear is sent to a prison in El Salvador at some point. I'm putting that on a T-shirt. Sans the little accent here. But that's some sort of Gaelic word. I don't know what it means. I tried to Google it. Doesn't really call it out in the film. We'll get into it, guys. I have no fucking idea what it means, but it is a spooky little horror flick from, like I said, last year. So, but before we get into that, we got to do a bunch of shit at the top of the show like we always do. Steve, I know you are under the weather. Are you sipping on anything over there to make you feel better? Maybe a little bit of Pappy's old cough medicine. What do you got going?
Cherry Coke. I got cherry Coke.
Yeah, cherry Coke.
I got cherry Coke.
Yeah. You know what? Cherry Coke always helps my tummy feel better. I don't know if you're having tummy troubles, but a cherry Coke sometimes help.
Not really. I'm just trying to, I had a little bit of coffee. Like I made 2 pots of coffee today to stay up. So I had a little bit of coffee before I came on, and now I'm just coasting down on a can of Coke. I got some water, and I got my little cough drops. I also took a big old swig of NyQuil. So, I'm doing old people mixing of uppers and downers.
Yeah.
But, I'm a real party animal, but no actual alcohol happening.
No, not. I wouldn't call that the most fun combinations of uppers and downers, but you're getting it done. Well, I am not particularly creative this evening either in regards to beverages. I am enjoying a beer, but I am enjoying a beer that many of you could probably guess if you needed to. The namesake of the Cryptor Kel here. I'm getting down on some Pilsner Kel, which is obviously not uncommon for your boy. So I'm going to have a couple 2-3 of these. We're going to talk about some Irish horror. And we got to pick also, Stephen. I don't know if you're aware, but this son of a bitch a month is wrapping up real quick. This minisode is releasing on the 28th of April, which means that May Showdown is coming up real quick. In fact, it is coming up next week. So let's take a quick moment here before we get into actually doing our Showdown topic picks for next week. Let's just remind all the boils and ghouls at home what the fuck a Showdown episode is, because sometimes I forget to say that. Most of the time I forget to say that. Well, we give you some succulent, unctuous, yummy content on the internet every damn Monday, but the first Monday of every month is extra special because we do what's called a Showdown episode. And what that is me, Steve, and then a guest, or perhaps our collective Patreon patrons will select movies associated with a particular topic. You might be saying to yourself, where the fuck does that topic come from? You just pick that off the old topic tree? Well, in a sense, we do, but instead of a tree, it's a spinny ass wheel that's got about a bajillion different topics on it. When I say topics, I mean perhaps a subgenre of horror, perhaps it's a particular performer. Perhaps it's a trope, whatever. Lots of different topics on there. We pick 3 of them that come off that spinny ass wheel, put them on the social medias, and our social media friends and listeners vote, and we end up with a topic for our Showdown. And then each one of us, Steve, myself, guest, and or our collective Patreon friends, they pick a movie associated with that topic. During the Showdown episode, we have a goddamn slobber knocker where we discuss each one of the movies. We argue about which one is the best. Someone's going to get, Hurricane Rana. Someone's going to take a fucking kendo stick upside the head. And ultimately, we'll vote. Someone takes home that son of a bitch championship strap for the month. To the victor, of course, go the spoils. And that winner gets to hand out a punishment movie on the very next episode. Sometimes that punishment movie is fun. Sometimes that punishment movie is fish piss. All right, so that's kind of how this works. And tonight we are going to pick our Showdown movies, and the topic that for some reason you miserable rat fucks decided to give us the dregs of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, because we've already done it once and most of the best movies were picked. So we're going to have to watch some dog shit movies from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. But last thing before we get into picking those movies, Steven, we just recorded our second episode of our most recent Patreon exclusive podcast series. Why don't you tell the bulls and ghouls what's going on over there on a Patreon?
Yeah, you sign up. You go to patreon.com/HalloweenIsForever. You give us money, and then in return, you get podcast. More podcasts than you did before.
Yeah. Count up all the podcasts you have now.
Yep.
Multiply that by some particular multiplier, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Let's say 0.48 amounts, 1.48 times the podcast you have now. That's what you'll end up with if you give us your money. Give it to us.
Do it.
Give me your money.
Coward. Give us your money, coward.
We're going to slowly start taking these promos into it's just strong hand robbery. Give me your money. Audio version of strong hand robbery.
It's
Get on the ground. Empty your pockets.
It's a pretty nice Spotify account you got there. Would be a shame if something would have happened to it.
I'm just standing behind you, flicking a quarter up in the air.
Yeah. You tell him, Steve.
Why do I gotta be the all right? I know why I gotta be the little tiny dog, but I'm just saying I resent that remark.
I mean, hey, you can flip it around. So it depends on what business we're walking into. We can flip it around sometimes.
Sometimes the big dog has the little voice, and the little dog's kind of he's the gruff one. So yeah, I'm just saying. I just don't think it's fair that I automatically have to have that voice, is what I'm saying.
I mean, you could be the little short gangster who has the 10-gallon hat that makes him taller. And he's like, shut up. You could be him sometimes.
Also, I'm I'm 6 foot tall, like 230 pounds. So
Sure,
like,
yeah.
I'm not a little guy. I'm just little compared to you.
Right, yeah. Well, hey, be 6'6" and over 300, and then we can talk.
Oh.
We can talk whose role gets to be what.
Right,
I mean,
fine.
this would all be a lot easier if Meg was still here because she's 5'4". She would be the one with the little 10-gallon hat.
She would be.
Shut up.
Yeah, she would be. Yeah. Anyway, give us your money.
Yeah, give us our money, and then you get podcasts. And in those podcasts, you get the Family is Forever podcast, which is about Fast and Furious movies. They're terrible, and we laugh at them. You get Youth Group is Forever podcast, which is about Christian horror movies. They're terrible, and we laugh at them. And right now, we're recording our brand new series, The 90s is Forever, which is about 90s comedies, which are terrible. And we laugh at them, but not the way they wanted us to. And then we make fun of them.
No, the movie we just did, which I think we've already announced on the main show here already. So people know what it is a movie from, what was it, 1990?
Yep,
right?
1990.
Called a gnome named Norm, or quite possibly a gnome named Gnorm.
Yes. Or Space Cop.
Or Space Cop. And it is so aggressively unfunny in its intentional humor. But it is funny in just its lunacy and the amount of cocaine people had to do to make them think they were making a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. The amount of just drugs that had to be flowing actively to make people think that they were on the right track for any of the decisions made in that film is a lot. Yeah. It stars
the great Anthony Michael Hall, who might have done a Michael Keaton level of cocaine before he shot this movie. May or may not have.
I would say probably more like a Jim Belushi.
Oof.
Or like just the performance alone feels kind of Jim Belushi-esque as well.
It does. Anyway, a mountain of cocaine. The cocaine budget on this movie was, I'm going to say, $350,000.
Yeah, that movie, it also does spend a lot of money, but for the horror fans wondering why we're talking about it, it's not just Anthony Michael Hall, who you recognize from the Halloween recent trilogy, but it was directed by Stan Winston, and it was his second and only feature after Pumpkinhead. So it's
and just a real weird juxtaposition compared to Pumpkinhead. But
yeah.
Anyway, we had a lot of fun talking about it. Go over there, give us your paper money, and you get a bunch of cool stuff. In addition to our Patreon exclusive podcast series, you could be joining us here in the Discord as we record live. Talking about our recent fish piss related discretions as well. All right. Anything else before we get into this Nightmare on Elm Street business?
Now we can move on to picking movies.
Okay. So this is going to be relatively stress-free for me because we had a guest last semester. Last semester. I was just emailing somebody because I'm teaching a course at my alma mater, some brewing stuff coming up here. So I was just talking to my wife about that. But last month's Showdown, we had the wonderful hosts of the Final Girls podcast on, and then Kelly won, and then she came on and handed us down a mighty punishment in the form of a movie called Sabretooth from 2002, I want to say.
Yep.
But since she is not here the following month to, I guess, defend her title, the first pick, because normally the winner gets to pick first, is going to go to me because I came the closest in terms of votes. So I'm going to pick the first movie, or I'm going to get the first pick rather in terms of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So just to remind everybody, this was, I don't know, a few years ago at least, we did our first round with Nightmare on Elm Street, and Meg defended Freddy versus Jason. I did Dream Warriors, obviously, and Steve did Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So those three are off the table. But the one that ain't off the table is the one I'm going to pick here, which is legitimately my second favorite movie in the franchise behind Dream Warriors. I'm going to go with 1984's original Nightmare on Elm Street. So I'm going to make that easy.
You're not allowed to pick that one. That's
Why not?
The gentleman. That's always been the gentleman's agreement that we don't pick the original.
Right. We did say that.
Fucking Jacko.
All right, we did say that. Now that you mention it, we did say that. All right, well, what's my next one going to be? All right, so we can't do Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. Dream Warriors, obviously I did once already. Probably after that, I might pick Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is obviously already taken. All right, I'm going to go to my next one on the list, which is it's a stark drop off. Frankly, after that. And we did agree to not do, we did a gentleman's agreement, and I completely forgot to not do 1984, the original. So, God damn it. That one sucks. That one sucks too. They all suck after this.
That's why it's called the drinks. That's why we were upset we had to do this one in the first place.
I know. I'm fucking tired. I ran 5 miles today. I was up till 2 a.m. last night, which is late for me. My brain's a little fucked up. All right. I'm going to go next. I'm going to go with, all right. I'm going to do Dream Master.
Okay.
I don't hate that movie.
Yeah,
I know that's a glowing review, but I'm going to do from 1988. I'm going to do The Dream Master, which is, of course, the 4th movie in the franchise, right after my personal favorite, which is Dream Warriors. Guys, telling you right now, stark drop off. But that's what I'm going to fucking do. It's still fun.
All right.
Well, you got a real bag of shit after that, man.
Yeah.
Freddy vs. Jason's fun. Obviously, that's gone.
Yep.
Dream Child sucks shit.
Yeah, Dream Child eats butts.
The Final Nightmare, I honestly don't even remember that movie very much.
And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards that one.
I haven't seen that in years.
I don't remember it. And I remember not liking The Dream Child actively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. And you're obviously not going to do the 2010. No one wants that.
Not going to do the remake.
Yeah.
But what about? So I'm torn between 6 and 2.
Yeah.
And why not 2? Why not 2?
Why not 2?
Why not 2 is what I'm trying to. Why not 2? When and why 6 is the dilemma I'm running into right now.
Yeah. Okay. Freddy's Revenge. I remember some good things from Freddy's Revenge.
Mm-hmm. So I had a plan that after I was going to start looking at the fan films. I wanted to just throw a real wrench in everything and pick a fan film, something that we would never expect. And I started with the one that was a continuation of New Nightmare that had the original actor who played the kid in New Nightmare, Miko Hughes.
Yeah.
They brought him back to do a fan film that was it was sort of co-produced by the same people who do those Jason fan films, the Womp Stomp films.
Yeah.
But it's only 30 minutes long, and it doesn't have an ending. It's actually more of a proof of concept type film.
Okay.
And I was like, fuck. I mean, I wish it was just a little bit better and I would have picked that, but it just wasn't there. The person like the Freddy makeup isn't great and the person playing Freddy isn't awesome. So I couldn't commit to that. Man. So fuck it. I'm going to go 6, Freddy's Revenge, or not Freddy's Revenge, the Final Nightmare.
Final Nightmare. Okay.
Yeah.
What year is that?
1991.
1991, and that's of course 6. That's 4. Yeah, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 obviously has quite a cult following, and you know, I think it's experienced some more. It's definitely experienced a resurgence in. I don't even know if resurgence is the right word, but a little bit of a. People are seeing it through a different lens, especially since that Scream Queen documentary came out about like Mark Patton and like all the like gay subtext and everything around that movie, which definitely sheds new light on it, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
So I don't remember 6 very much. I can't even think. I can't even remember shit about 6. What is, man, I don't know. It's been years and years. So I'm actually excited to give that another view. But for the patrons, boy howdy, you got a real task here. Task here.
This is their punishment for, I don't know, not voting hard enough. I just don't want the audience to have, like, I didn't want the audience to pick this subject to go with to begin with. Yeah, I wanted to do Pests and Vermin. And so now, as a vengeful producer, I'm saying, well, you know what? You don't get your first choice of the worst movies. You just don't get it. Like, I kind of figured you were going to pick the Dream Master because that one connects directly into Dream Warriors.
Yeah, it's a drop off big time. But it reminds me enough about it that maybe it'll draw a little bit of goodwill from it. Who knows?
Yeah. That's the one with the big pizza scene in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the meatballs. Yeah, the meatballs on the pizza.
Yeah.
So that's the best. That's the best one. One of the grossest scenes in just horror history.
Yeah.
Freddy eating little meatball heads of his victims off of a giant pizza. But come on, it's fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will determine via the Patreon this week what our patrons are going to pick. I have a strong suspicion it's going to be number 2, but we shall see. All right. Anything else before we get into talking about tonight's feature presentation?
Not that I can think of, no.
All right. Let's get into Fréwaka or Fréwaka, perhaps. But I'm going to continue to keep calling it Fréwaka because, again, big Fozzie guy over here. Aislinn Clarke is the director of this movie. She directed The Devil's Doorway in 2018, which I did not see. Steve, is that something that's on your radar at all?
I mean, it's on my radar now because I looked into it to see what it was about, and I was like, oh, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. So I'll probably go back and revisit that film after having seen this one. Yeah.
And then she also did a movie just the year prior to that one in 2017 called a short film called Childer. So yeah, I don't know. Spoiler alert, I really, really like this movie. So I'm excited to check out some other things that she's done. She has a few other directorial credits. I believe they are all shorts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's jump right into this one. Let's talk real quickly about the cast. Irish cast. Claire Manelli, potentially.
No, Monelly. You know that's Monelly. You know that's
it's Monelly. It's Monelly, yeah, for sure.
Manelli makes it Italian.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I said it, I was like, no, that's that's Italian. She plays Shue. We have, good Lord, there's some Gaelic pronunciations, and then there is I would assume Ukrainian name on here that is just lousy with consonants. So there is perhaps no language harder to guess the pronunciation of than Gaelic, because the sounds for all of the letters are completely different than what we think they should be.
Gaelic,
I'm just
and Polish.
Yeah,
Polish
all
is
the fuck
insane.
over the place.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say phonetically English here. Bridney Neacton. There's no way that's how you say it. She plays Peeg, and then we have Mila, who is Shu's fiance, and her name is Alexandra Bustrizhikaya, perhaps. That is a long. Brzhishkaya.
That's
Brzhishkaya, perhaps. Holy shit, that is a couple of tough names there. Those are three big characters here for sure. We'll talk about a couple other ones here as we get into it, but those are your main cast. Okay, so let's get a little bit into the plot here. A couple things I'll say at the top of the movie. I already said that I liked it a lot. I wouldn't say that this movie does anything absolutely mind-blowingly new or different. It just does what it does extremely well, in my opinion. I thought this movie performances, I thought, are all just fantastic. I mean, Shu and I kept calling her Peg because I just think Peg's a fun name. And my one of my daughters is Margaret. She goes by Maggie, but I've been trying to get her to go by Peg or Peggy. So a lot of times I'll call her Peggy because a 9-year-old named Peggy is hilarious. But I think they were saying it Peeg is how they were saying it in the movie, right? It was
a little like in between of like Peg and Peeg, because it wasn't like straight up hey Peeg. It was like it was like Peg.
It was Peg kind of thing. Wait, and the pronunciation I'm not capable of. I'm going to call her Peg because that's how it ended up in my notes. So that's how I'm sticking with it. Fantastic performances, really well-paced movie. Like for a movie that was, what's the runtime on this thing? Like an hour 40 or something like that. 103 minutes. I thought it was paced really well.
So I'm going to apologize to the audience ahead of time because I know I'm not in my right head with all the cold medicine and fever sweating and all like non-sleeping I've been doing. I recognize that this film is really well shot and the soundtrack is amazing. Like
really great sound design across the board, I thought. Yeah,
I love the soundtrack and the sound design. The production design is amazing because everything feels so lived in and real. And like you're saying, the performances are good, but the movie itself didn't hit me, and it felt like fucking homework.
Really?
Yeah. I only say it feels like homework because there is so much folklore and Irish history like steeped into it, but they don't explain any of it. So that's homework for me because I have to go look up what all this fucking shit means, and I did not feel like that right now.
Yeah, so first of all, this is a you problem.
I know. That's why I'm apologizing ahead of time. I know it's a me problem, but I'm also just giving the audience a head up. Like, there's a whole lot of lore in this.
There is.
I mean, I don't see it as inscrutable as like A Field in England, which is that movie's also homework. Like you have to go.
Oh, that is the definition of it. Like unless you sit and read for 2 hours, you have no fucking idea anything that's happening in that movie.
Yeah. And that movie is even hard to begin with.
Yeah.
Like where do you start researching?
Yeah.
At least this film dots enough clues that you know what to go start looking at. Like you can it'll give you, you'll have like search terms for yourself by the end of the film.
Sure.
Like things to look up. But even in the, time I had to look things up, I still haven't been able to piece everything together. And so the film doesn't feel as satisfying to me because I'm just left with a bunch of symbols and iconography that I'm just like, I don't know what that means, and I'm too tired.
There is a lot. There is a ton. I mean, this is definitely a movie you could go back and watch a few times and pick up on even more references to, Gaelic folklore, as well as just like general Irish social trauma as well.
Yeah.
So this is like, I thought of this in a couple of different ways. Like in one way, it feels very much, and I also am a big folk horror person in general. So there's a lot, it's become quite fashionable to do like, these kind of like Western and Central European folklore movies. I mean, it always has been. And when I say becoming, I guess you could point back to, good Lord, Wicker Man and stuff like that. Obviously that's English, but, or no, that's Irish as well.
The Wicker Man,
right? Scottish.
Yeah, that sounds probably more.
Yeah,
right.
I think Wicker Man's Scottish. In any case, this feels in a lot of ways, obviously it's Irish as opposed to Scottish, but it feels a bit like a spiritual successor a little bit to that movie, but it also brings into play a whole lot more, like I said, societal and generational trauma kind of in kind of moved along. So it almost reminds me of Wicker Man a little bit. If Wicker Man and Hereditary had a baby a little bit, it's kind of feels somewhere in that realm.
A little bit.
Just to oversimplify it.
Yeah. Did you see the movie Saint Maud?
Yeah. I like that one a lot too.
Yeah, I also feel like there's a lot of that movie in this movie with the unreliable narrators and the Catholic influence on the film.
Yeah, there's much more. Obviously, Wicker Man is religious, but it's like a folk religion as opposed to like straight up Catholic iconography, which I love that. I love that comparison too. You sprinkle in some Saint Maud, and I think you got a pretty good mashup of those three movies in this, because tons of Catholic iconography and also the unreliable narrator, like you said. Whereas in Wicker Man, we're very much on the level of the prudy cop from the mainland, kind of coming to this foreign world. Whereas the other two, the mental illness portion of it and the generational trauma portion of it make for the unreliable narrator. But anyway, a lot of like small town culty folklore shit going on here. But in this movie, obviously we're going to spoil the hell out of it, so be aware of that. There are actual supernatural elements as well, which are pretty interwoven throughout. So you start out with this flashback scene, and essentially a bunch of young people, Irish young people in what appears to be, I don't know, let's say it's the late 60s, early 70s, something like that. It might be the mid 70s, for God's sakes, who knows? But there's like some kind of very rural, small town. We come to realize later, like a wedding reception kind of thing, or some sort of party after a wedding.
I'm pretty sure it says 73.
73? Does it give an... Okay.
Yeah, it does give a date.
There is some just old world white people cult shit going on here. Like there's just people with weird straw hats / masks showing up at this showing up at this wedding reception. And we meet this young girl, and she and her husband, this is their wedding night, which you don't necessarily know that right off the bat. But she's pretty bummed that they're there. She goes outside, she barfs. So you're like, why is this gal barfing? We later learn that she is at this moment pregnant. So this was a bit of a shotgun wedding, if you will, right? And then she sees a goat, and a goat, when it comes to folk horror, you're not in a good spot. If you're seeing goats, random unmanned goats, it's usually not a good sign. And then all of a sudden you just see her ring is all that's left. So you kind of got to assume she was abducted or something happened to her. And was it a goat? Was it the creepy white people cult? What's going on? We're not really sure. Flash forward, and we get this woman, I'm going to say, an older woman, and she is having some trouble. Like, she is reciting prayers and singing and just seems to be in a state of like mental and emotional distress. And we get a pretty brutal scene of her kind of, I would say abruptly, almost unceremoniously, hanging herself in her apartment. And then we get to watch her hang there for a while. Then we get to watch her, fall down and just her body lay there and rot for a while. And then eventually, this movie does a great job of the kind of show don't tell stuff as well, because you just assume she laid there long enough, she started to stink, the neighbors called the authorities, and all of a sudden you got the fire rescue people there breaking in the door, and then they find her gooey ass on the carpet. So she's there long enough that she doesn't have anybody in her life that cares about her. Yep. And so that's part of the show don't tell. You realize, no one cares about her. But when the two police officers or, wellness, whoever it is, the health and safety commission, whatever it is that breaks the door down, okay. So they're there because somebody smelled a smell, not because anybody gave a shit. Yeah, exactly. So fast forward to, we've got two young women. We've got Shu and Mila, and they are at that apartment and they're cleaning it out. They are being tasked with cleaning out the apartment. We start to learn this movie gives you a lot of very gradual bits of information. We learn pretty early on that Shu had some sort of relation with the woman who hung herself. Mila and her are in a relationship. Mila, you can tell just visually right off the bat, Mila is pregnant and pretty far along. They have some sort of, you assume, romantic relationship. I don't think it's moving anything too far down the line, just to say that we learn a little bit later that they are engaged. And they intend to raise this baby together. So there's a lot of wacky Jesus iconography. There's a dang glowing red cross that keeps reoccurring throughout the movie. There's a glow in the dark Mary. Yeah, like a straight up like green glow in the dark Virgin Mary, and we even get a thing where like. You don't really know exactly why. You assume it might just be like stress, trauma related or whatever. But Shu kind of takes a little winky nap on the couch and has some dreams about that Red Cross and Jesus imagery getting, just being pretty aggressive toward her in general. So Shu gets called off to work. She gets a message. She is like a mobile, like caregiver type of person, who would go and care for somebody recovering from surgery or some sort of medical emergency or, an elderly person or something like that. That's her job. And she gets this message, decides to take it. And so you could think of it as, she has to leave for work, or it's definitely positioned more as like she takes this job to avoid this whole thing and having to clean out this apartment and deal with whatever type of trauma that she's, having to deal with the passing of this woman. She leaves Mila, her fiance, there to just deal with it on her own, which is a pretty rough move. But that's what she does. Oh, we should also call out too that like Shu is Irish and she speaks what she says, what they call Irish, but I guess is like technically Gaelic, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Irish,
that,
Irish Gaelic or Gaelic. It's all the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's where you get the goddamn name Siobhan, which is, it's come into popularity as of late because of that show Succession. I guess there was a character named Siobhan on there, but that's where you get your first hint that Gaelic is a silly language because SIOBH is pronounced Shiv. And it's like, no, it isn't. That's, you have done that to screw with the English. And you, because the Gaelic has its own, I think Gaelic has its own kind of alphabet.
Yeah.
But as it was adopted, and like, you know, as the English were insistent of pushing themselves on the Irish, the Irish were saying, well, here's how our language goes. And this is pronounced Siobhan. And the English were like, oh, no, it isn't. That says Sabone. And it's like, nope. Gotcha. We got you.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I have a daughter also named Maeve, which is an Irish Gaelic name, but we spell it very much in the English way, which is not like Maeve, as opposed to there is a character in this movie named Maeve, and it's spelled like Mahjbne or something, like it's just insane way. You're like, what the fuck? And then when they said her name was Maeve, I was like, Jesus God, it's an insane way to spell it. So Shu, you know, this is kind of, you know, the area where she's from, her family's from, and she speaks Gaelic. So that makes her like specifically qualified for this particular role because they need somebody who speaks, quote unquote, speaks Irish. But Mila is Ukrainian. We should call out as well too. Although they both speak English as well. So she's hopping on the bus. She goes to this town. We get these very Wicker Man type vibes right off the bat because the town that she's going to, you can tell, is very small, very insular, very isolated, probably both, you know, socially and perhaps even geographically. And they all just talk about her. This is a theme in the movie, is they just talk about her in Gaelic, and then she understands what they're saying and calls them on it and just basically says, I can understand you, and starts speaking Gaelic. And they're all like, ooh, because they assume she can't.
Right.
So there's this weird guy on the bus, and the bus driver says to this just weird cat on the bus, like, hey, she's looking for this house. And he's like, tell her to go home. And she's like, I can understand you. And he's like, ee. But everyone's just kind of being standoffish towards her. But he ultimately tells her how to get to the house. Gets off the bus. Immediately, the greeting party shows up, which is a damn haunted ginger goat boy. And you're just like, God damn, you never want to see that. When you get off the bus in a small town and you see this little creepy ginger kid and he's just standing there with a goat staring at you, that's never a good sign. They direct her to go down towards this fairy tree, they call it. And you can tell it's I don't know a lot about like I know a little bit about like fairies and that type of folklore and the, what do they call them? Like the good people or whatever, good people of the forest and that sort of stuff. And they're very like mischievous. They like to play tricks. They like to manipulate people. In certain folklore, they're straight up evil as fuck. But they're always kind of like trying to appease them, right? With different, but like also simultaneously protect themselves from it. So she goes up to this tree. It's very like decorated with all these like ribbons and all this stuff hanging from this tree. There's also clearly like a lot of offerings around the tree too. There's like a bunch of bottles of milk and things like that. So you know that whoever is responsible for this, whether it's the town as a whole, whether it's just this particular person that owns this property, but they are very They take this stuff very, very seriously. A lot of just very typical witchy Irish shit, basically.
Yeah. Like the Irish folklore is, like you're saying, it's just very populous with a lot of different things. Like, I think what I was reading about, like the over encompassing term for all of this is like the Aes she.
Okay.
Which that is kind of like the people of the forest, or, the people of the fairy mound. And so, they're a type of fairy, but then like within that, there's a whole bunch of other fairies, which include the banshees and the leprechaun and even the Arbitok that we talked about from, that movie Past. So it's just they all have a bunch of shit going on. And I wasn't able to pin down who exactly we're seeing in this film, but I think it's just a general like elven type of person that comes from the woods and has like, supernatural abilities.
Yeah. Wood spirits, basically, like mischievous, evil wood spirits.
Yeah.
So you get to the house. We get a jump scare from a spooky old lady. She does not want to let Shu in. She's very suspicious that she's not who she says she's going to be. But then Shu just decides to straight up do a B&E on the old lady's house, just break the window and let herself in. And she's weirdly okay with it, the old lady, which makes sense later. But she is also like the Solid Snake of old ladies who can't walk, because she just like is silently sliding around the house. Basically, she has a wheelchair, but she also, she has a lot of stairs in her house, and she goes up and down the stairs by just basically like flopping herself, on her butt up these stairs, just with her arms. So she doesn't get around real well, but she's very stealthy about it at the same time. She has all this stuff around her house, all the superstitious stuff around the house. She's got this like basement door that's red. I was just referring to it in my notes as the lucky door, because it's just got like horseshoes all around it and all these like very specific number of nails lined up. And you can clearly tell it almost looks like a shrine of sorts, but she is trying to keep something in or out. We're not really sure what yet, but it's a creepy, superstitious door situation. We also see that Shu has a horseshoe necklace that very much piques this old lady's attention. And I guess Shu is short for, I think you pronounce it Shuan.
Yeah. She's Shuan. She's Shuvan. Yeah. And then there is Siobhan, but she's Shuvan because she has a U in it.
And I guess Shuan, Shu is short for it, which obviously in English sounds like shoe, like a horseshoe. So that's I guess that's where the nickname comes from. But she has this necklace. The old lady is ornery as fuck. She's mean. She doesn't want her there. She's very suspicious of her and everything else. But she does like to rip a cig. She parties a little bit. And she's like secretive, but she's also a bit of an oversharer as well. She's just a bit of an enigmatic old lady. We learn that her name is Pig. I'm going to call her Peg, because I'm going to just not be able to. That pronunciation is going to be different every time I say it. Otherwise, so we don't know exactly what's happening in terms of like who's who. They keep it relatively vague. Mm-hmm. But she says her name is Peg. She explains that her daughter killed herself, And obviously we know that someone close to Shu killed herself, which I'm not jumping too far ahead here in explaining that was her mom. And we start to see her dealing with the fact that like she had a really bad relationship with her mom. Her mom had like severe mental illness issues, was abusive to her. And we get a lot of this being gradually revealed throughout the movie of what the things she would do to Shu, lock her in cabinets and, I don't know, burn her with cigarettes or something like that. So they kind of share, they share a little bit of a bond right off the bat because of this like trauma that they deal with. But I think as a whole, the audience is like, okay, we get it. That woman who hung herself was Shu's mom and Peg's daughter. So Peg's probably Shu's grandma. Like I think that pretty much everybody could have picked up on that by this point. They don't explicitly say it, but we can kind of pick up on that's most likely the case. But we don't know why she got called out here. We don't know anything about. We're still there's still some puzzle pieces missing in between those two determinations, even though we might have already made them. We get, she's got like mirrors covered up. She goes up and gets her to take a bath. She's got mirrors covered up. She wears her like nightgown inside out, either on purpose or not on purpose, but that does become significant later. The old lady's just very resistant to help. She can be pretty mean as well. Also, no signal, no cell signal, bad sign. There is a rotary phone, but it won't make outgoing calls. So the company that she's working for, the caregiver company, calls her and says like, hey, this old lady's Looney Tunes. And she's like, oh, I didn't know that, kind of thing, whatever. So there's some like weird miscommunication right off the bat. And they're basically said like, hey, we're going to come out and visit you to do like a site visit at some point because of, this unique case. And she's like, oh, okay. So she's kind of a bit concerned about that because obviously that's her employer coming out to like check on this stuff. The old lady's very paranoid right off the bat. I mean, they actually call it out in like her like file is that she's paranoid.
Right.
And you're not really sure why. And you just are meant to kind of believe or understand that it's just because of whatever mental illness she's suffering from, dementia, whatever.
It's setting Peg up as like not an unreliable narrator because she's not in the driver's seat of the film at this point. Mm-hmm. Shu is our protagonist, but it is setting Peg up as unreliable because we've already put together, we also see the framed photo of her and her husband, and we realize that Peg is the Peg from the beginning of the film who had the run-in with the goat and disappeared from her wedding. And so you're like, oh, this is like a very erratic lady, and we don't know what happened in that time period between her disappearing from her wedding to becoming a crazy old shut-in now. Yeah.
I understand that you said shut-in, but for a quick moment with your congestion, it sounded like you said chud for a second.
Chud.
And I got really excited. She's just a crazy old chud.
She's a crazy old chud.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller, obviously, for those of you who are uninitiated. So Shu's seeing a lot of visions and having bad dreams of her mom hanging from the fairy tree, and so this environment is affecting her in a lot of ways. In fact, she's like laying there. I forget what she's doing. If she's doing something else around the house, or perhaps she's in bed. But Shu hears she just hears some crazy loud praying and some wailing. And when she goes to the old lady's room, she's just sleeping. And she's like, oh, okay. So there's some weird, spooky shit happening.
Yeah. She was in the bath. And
that's right. She was taking a bath.
Yeah, and she had her head, like, she was in the bath in such a way that, like, her face was still above water, but her head was below water, and she could hear the praying. So even through that, so that's what, like, sparks her as, like, that's some loud ass praying because I can hear it with my head underwater. So yeah.
Yeah. Somebody would be praying their ass off here somewhere. She goes back, but old lady's fast asleep. She ends up sitting in there with her, falls asleep, wakes up. Lady is having some issues, flopping around, wailing in her sleep, a lot of stuff. Wakes her up, gives her some medicine. Now the old lady Peg is real anti-medicine. Not only for herself, but ultimately for Shu as well. She's talking about you got to keep your wits about you and you got to stay sharp, and the medicine's going to like dull your sensitivity to whatever things are happening. She's very cryptic about it. Eventually, they are starting to connect a little bit, starting to develop a bit of a rapport. She says that there's a house under the house, which is kind of sick as fuck. I'm not going to lie. When I heard there's a house under the house, I was like, oh, cool. Now, I thought it was going to be more of a literal house. Spoiler alert, it's not.
No.
But I was like, oh, literal house under the house? That's cool.
Yeah. When I first watched the trailer and you sent that to me, I thought we were in like a barbarian situation, that there was like a cult that lives underneath her house. But no, that's not what happens.
Yeah, I always got all excited. I thought it was going to be like some sort of weird like House in the Borderlands situation or something. But nah, it's I mean, it's cool, but it's not. It's not a house under the house. But there is some wacky stuff happening. There's a let's say there's a it could be a physical tunnel, or perhaps it's some sort of spiritual portal. We're not sure, but there is some stuff happening in the basement.
Yeah,
probably a little bit.
Well,
of
it's alluded to that it's much more of a spiritual portal type situation that we have going on, because Peg is telling Shu, that there's these times in life where the veil gets thin for these spirits to come through, and it's when there's birth, death, and marriage, and when these things happen, it's easy for these things to come through, and Shu is experiencing almost all three at the same time, because her mom just died. She's engaged to get married to Mila, who's pregnant. So it's like almost all three things are happening at the same time to Shu.
Yep. And also there's she's kind of alluding to this things of like, hey, there's like ways to kind of deter whatever these spirits are. She calls out like salt and piss and something else, I forget. So there's a lot of these little, not that becomes super, it does come back, but not that it's super relevant, but just an example of tons of these little references to various bits of folklore in here, where, you could go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole probably for an hour, just looking up the significance of salt and piss and whatever else she mentions to scare away ghosts. Salt, that's pretty straightforward. We've all heard that one before, but I'll be honest, piss was a new one to me.
I think there's just salt in the piss as well. So
maybe, perhaps. That's
the dumbness of old magicians not knowing the science of it, and it's just because there's salt in your piss too. Stupid.
yeah, perhaps. Speaking of the salt, like the Peg puts salt in Shu's oatmeal in the morning, and you're not really sure why. At first, you're like, on surface level, it's just like, oh, she's just being a bitch, fucking up her oatmeal. But also, you come to learn that she's kind of testing her to see if she can trust her, to see if she's essentially real, or if she is a trick that the Fae people, if you will, or whatever these entities are playing on her, or trying to trick her in some capacity. So Shu finds her medicine in the trash. Again, old lady had thrown it away. I mentioned how she's like urging her to stay, we got to stay frosty here. We got dang fairies about. Mila's trying to get Shu to like go through all these personal effects, and Shu's just like, fuck it, throw them away. And Mila's like, no, you have to come to terms with this a little bit. Like, this is your mom, your daughter, whether you like it or not. And she's trying to get her to like face this stuff, and Shu's just obviously trying to avoid it. Is like, no, burn it all. So Shu's going into town, and all the town has all these, I guess, suspicions about Peg, and they're all kind of being real. I don't know how to describe it. Just kind of being not just like rude and dismissive, but also like kind of antagonizing towards her because of her association with Peg.
Yeah, well,
they're kind of trying to like discredit her, but also there's a lot of wink, wink, nod, nod, Wicker Man type of shit happening as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of like the distrustful town that like they're rude to Shu because when she first enters this shop, the lady behind the counter is talking shit in Gaelic again,
mm-hmm.
and is like, oh, here comes another tourist, and Shu does the same thing she did to the old man on the bus, and is like, I know what you're saying, I'm from Dublin, and the old
mm-hmm.
lady and the lady behind the counter is like, same thing, tourist person from Dublin,
yeah.
I don't think they actually give this town a name or location, but I think it's safe to assume this is all Northern Ireland, which is why they're speaking Gaelic and why it's so kind of remote. They're pretty removed from, the modern society. But so they're shitty to Shu because of that, but also they're shitty about Peg
mm-hmm.
because she has like this mystique around her as being, the crazy old lady with the crazy fairy tree, and kids probably fucking stand around her house like daring each other to go touch her porch and shit like that.
Yeah. So you're like, hey, are they really, is there something going on, or is this just all kind of in Shu's mind, or is it the Peg is just wacky, or is it a combination of all three? You're not really sure. We get this kind of side storyline, which I'll be honest, I think this is probably the one part that went over my head a little bit, that probably requires a little bit more research on my behalf. But we get introduced to, because I think it has something to do with the song they were singing, but there's this wake house, right? And wake house is basically, it's like the place where they're gonna like kind of display the body, right? And people are gonna go in there to mourn, someone in town who had died. So it almost looks a little bit like when you got the little pop-up shed that they put up when Santa Claus, around Christmas time. That's the place you go. That's Santa Claus's workshop, but it's in like, in your hometown, and everyone goes and lines up to go see Santa Claus there. It's like that, but there's a corpse in it, basically.
Right. I don't think that's actually tied to the song that gets sung a lot, though, because I was looking it up, and the song that gets sung is like this really old Irish folklore song called Ned on the Hill, and it has another thing in Gaelic that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it's just basically like a ballad that retells the life of this folklore character, Ned O'Ryan, who went to war in the 1700s, and I wasn't able to research it long enough and put it together to how that what that means for this film, but I also just know I don't think it's very tied to the wake house at all.
Gotcha. I just saw that guy in the wake house, and then also there's there's that one old guy, which he shows up in the shop, but he's also on the bus, and I thought he was some sort of I don't know, harbinger of bad things or something, but I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see it, or I didn't get into it too deep. Yeah, she's again. They're I guess start to bond over the idea of all the wacky superstitions, and her mom had those, and obviously Peg has them, and for some reason they haven't made that determination yet that it is they're talking about the same person. Which, if there's one critique of the movie that I thought was a little, I guess it's not that unbelievable, but it's funny because everyone in the audience knows we're talking about the same person, but those two don't yet. which they're strangers. They live a long ways away geographically. I guess it stands to reason that they won't yet.
Yeah.
But
well,
at some point I thought Peg was going to kind of reveal that she knew the whole time, but she didn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think maybe you jumped a little ahead of the movie, because I don't think Peg makes mention early on that her daughter killed herself.
Yeah, she says something about her do you have any family? But when they're in the bedroom after the bath, I think it is, and she makes mention of did you have any family? And she says, oh, yeah, I don't know if she even says it was her daughter, but she says, like, yeah, I did, but they killed themselves, I think.
Yeah, but so Shu is talking about how her mother killed herself, but Peg is talking about how her husband killed himself.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's she says it's her husband. Well, no, yeah, that's when they're like laying in bed. But I think even earlier, doesn't she make mention of like she makes mention of a daughter. So yeah, or maybe she just says the daughter's dead. Maybe she doesn't say she killed herself. She says I had a daughter, but she's dead.
She either says that she's dead or she's gone. Like, so the way Peg's backstory is very mysterious, and it's structured in a way that, again, because she's unreliable, you don't know what the actual truth is, but you can kind of put together what the truth is. And I think the idea is that what you can either take her side of it, that she was abducted by these elven Shi and then made to barter her life for her child's life, and then her husband actually exchanged his life for the child's life. But what we can also
I didn't take it that way.
I
took it. I took it as the because she said that she got taken on her wedding night. Peg did, right? And then Peg says that initially just says my husband made a deal to get me back, right? But then later we learned that the deal was to give up their child to get her back,
right?
But they sent the child away, so they went back on the deal. So that's why she's constantly being harassed by the Fae people.
Yeah.
And why she's constantly on high alert is because they went back on their deal.
Right. So, and that's where things get muddy as to like what actually happened, because what I believe we're meant to believe really happened is Peg wasn't taken by the Shi or whatever. Peg had an episode and kind of ran off into the night or whatever, and then was taken to an asylum. Like, once they rediscovered her, they took her to an asylum, and she gave birth to Shu's mom in the asylum, which at the time would have been run by Catholics. And they made mention of this, the Magdalene Laundry. Yeah. The Magdalene Laundry I looked up, and that was kind of like the pleasant term for an asylum at the time. Like the way we called them sanitariums here. Laundry, sanitarium. It's all about like sanitation and cleanliness, but it's really just a house for fucking nutsos. And cause she makes mention of when she's again very cryptic, but when Peg first tells her about the house under the house, she's like, what is it? What's it like? And she's like, it leads to basically another place. And what's this other place? And she explains that it's like, it's a lot of things. It's the laundry. It's the, what'd she say? Like bullets, like streets with dead bodies and bullets flying. It's whatever. She gives probably like 4 or 5 at least examples of very specific, like
large scale societal tragedies from across the last 300-400 years in Ireland.
Right. Yeah. It all sounds like descriptions of types of hell, but
Yeah.
it could also just have been Belfast in the 70s and 80s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Is what it sounds like. So yeah, she's giving this description of this fey land, but when she says it's a street full of bullets and bodies, it's like that actually sounds more like the IRA fighting in the streets type shit.
Yeah.
And
so it almost goes through because then she gives another example, and I didn't write down what they were, but one of them seems like it was something about basically a home for unwed mothers kind of thing.
Right. She tries to convince us that her husband gave his life to get their daughter back. But what it probably really was is she was committed and he killed himself. And so because she was deemed unfit to raise the child on her own, they took the child, raised it within, the Catholic system that they had there, which is why Shu's mom, who is this baby, turns out so nutty Catholic, because she inherits the mental illness that Peg has, but it just gets reworked into Catholicism instead.
Yeah. Yep. Whereas Peg, not so much. She's got all the superstitions. Obviously, she believes in the fairies and everything, because she obviously is like, in this world, this stuff is real, and also she has mental illness, but you don't see all the Catholic iconography and everything in her home like you did in her mom's, which we never get the mom's name. The mom, Shu's mom / Peg's daughter. We never learn her name, right?
No, I think she's even just credited as the mother on IMDb.
Yeah.
But back to kind of the one scene we were talking about like them bonding. Is Shu, they're not bonding over the fact that both the mom and the grandma, Peg, they don't have like the same kind of belief system, but they do have the same kind of OCDs. And Shu like recognizes like when Peg is insistent about like replacing the nails of the superstition in front of the door. She's like, Shu's like, oh, hey, my mom also used to be really obsessive about control and things like that. Isn't that a coinky dink? So that's why it's easy. It's easy for the audience to get ahead of this movie and put it all together, that the mom is the baby and also the mom is the mother. And so Shu is Peg's granddaughter. It's easy for us to put that together because the movie very commonly calls out like these coinkydinks of like, I was abused by my mom and my mom also did these crazy things. Isn't that wacky? Don't we have, hey, old lady I've never met before, we have so much in common, don't we? It's like, you're related.
My mom used to have the same type of glow in the dark Virgin Mary that she had, like, but they do it for good reason, I think. And I think there's a nice payoff at the end, but, she explains the whole, basically what happened to her and the shotgun wedding and, how they went back on the deal and, yada, yada, whatever. This is the other thing that I was kind of, I was tying it to that old guy that in my mind, it had something to do with the song, perhaps. I didn't really have any evidence to suggest that, but, Peg's talking about this guy who died, in town, and he's the one who's supposedly in the wake house. Well, Shu has a dream that her mom is laid up in the wake house. But Peg is talking about this guy who like wanted her land and blah, 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 whatever, but explains that she believes that he let them in to her house whenever she was in the hospital, because she had a stroke And that's ultimately what we're meant to believe. The reason Shu is here is to take care of her after this stroke. So she was in the hospital for a period of time for whatever reason. And she believes this guy who she does not like, she's like, basically is happy he's dead. And he's like cutting out his photo from the obituary, is like, haha, dumb bastard, he's dead. And she believes that he did something to like let them in, meaning the fairies, I guess, into her house, because we get this thing, we learn here that the fairies have some similar, not unlike the vampire lore, in it seems like in Irish folklore, a lot of these things are all tied together. One person's vampires, another person's whatever the fuck. What's the vampire version in this like weird European folklore? You just said the name a little while ago. We just did a movie on it recently.
Yeah, the Arbitaw.
The Arbitaw, yeah. So one person's Dracula is another person's Arbitaw or whatever. But they have similar rules in that they have to be invited in to the home. So she feels like maybe he was responsible for it in some way or another. But he ultimately let his guard down, and I don't know, they got him in some capacity. Shu finds a wedding album in the basement, and we see that it's the couple from the beginning. And then, there's some clues that, she was taken by that weird group, that we saw in the opening scene that was at her wedding. She gets locked in the old Red Cross basement for a second. So like the basement wants her to do something, or wants her in some capacity. We're not really sure what yet, but, yeah, so she finally gets out. She takes her pills, and like that's her response, because she's not really sure this stuff is actually happening, or if it's just like whatever kind of mental illness she's suffering from combined with this trauma that is driving all these. I don't know. I guess she feels that maybe the stuff is all in her mind in some capacity.
Yeah, this is where she becomes more of an unreliable narrator, because all the visions before were kind of like happening in dream states. And I think this is the first one, when she's in the basement, is very clearly just like, a daytime switch where she's having a vision herself of being, assaulted. Like she's essentially being chased by her dead mother, and things that were in her mother's apartment are now appearing inside of this old lady's basement. And it's like, oh, well, all right, now our narrator is losing their mind too. So, okay.
And like, Goat Boy is showing up at the house, and she's telling him off. And also Mila sends a bunch of stuff from her mom to her, like basically mails it to her, which she burns. And then they have like a spat over the phone. And basically you kind of get the feeling that like, their relationship might be on the rocks a little bit. Anyway, since the old lady had thrown away all her pills, had thrown away Shu's pills, Shu goes into town to get some more, really for herself, but under the guise of getting them for Peg. She gets a call when she's leaving town that her employer is showing up for this on-site, this on-site visit, and she missed her arrival. So she kind of panics, runs back, gets there. She's there. She's very apologetic. I had to go get the medicine, blah, blah, blah. The lady who shows up, very sketchy right away.
Yeah.
She's like almost cartoonish in her like stuck up bossiness, but then she quickly turns to real fucking creepy. And she actually like stops at the threshold of the door, and then Shu invites her in, then she goes in. So again, now you're like, oh, okay, this ain't the employer. This is a dang old fairy person or ghost or some dang shit. But then like once the bedroom doors open, she also just disappears because she was invited in. So like now she in, you know what I mean? And then they get a call from the actual, like, whatever the service is. So again, it's pretty much confirmed at this point. Again, you're not 100% sure because it might be in her mind, but that wasn't really her employer checking on her. That was dang old Fae people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just a bunch of fun little clues in that, with one, when, Shu is just running up the drive. Like, we know Shu basically has to hoof it around town and walk like miles at a time to get anywhere. But like, when she's running up, this caseworker also doesn't have a car, I guess. But like, you would half expect that she did. But
sure.
Apparently, no, she also walked there. So it's kind of like, well, okay, that's half.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, that's half believable because we've had to see Shu walk everywhere.
Yeah.
Then she gets invited in, and you're kind of like, the movie's winking at me. But then by the end of the scene, the caseworker is like just rubbing herself against the old woman's door to like get in,
doing creepy fingers on the door and stuff, and you're like, okay, that's not how caseworkers act.
Yeah, that's not professional at all. And I would call your supervisor if I knew them.
Yeah, if I saw you doing creepy fingers on the outside of the door. So now when she leaves, or she doesn't even leave, she just kind of disappears. And then Shu is there, and the doorknob's like rattling. She opens the door, and she can actually see the other side of the doorknob, and there's nobody there. So it's a dang ghost. So Peg is pretty pissed off. Obviously, she let that woman in, and things are just it's too much heat in the kitchen here. So Peg basically says Shu, like, fuck off. She fires her, and Shu says, all right, fine, I'll leave in the morning. But I'll stay till the morning. I'll get your food, pick up your food, whatever, and then I'll fuck off. And she explains that, like, she says, like, as soon as I heard you were getting married, I should have fired you right then or whatever. So, and then Mila is back, still dealing with all the shit in Dead Mom's apartment. She gets a voicemail that the employer had not contacted her. In fact, had never contacted her even about this job.
Yeah.
So big reveal that she has been dragged here, summoned here to Peg's home and to this town for, some creepy reason we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Shu has been filing paperwork for a job she was not hired for. And they're just like, hey, we know you're on like bereavement leave. So why are you sending us work that we did not pay? We're not reimbursing any of this. You're not getting a per diem. What do you think this is? Yeah. So we're like, there's obviously that's a bit of the shit hitting the fan. For us and for Mila, obviously, because she's the one who gets this voicemail. But Goat Boy's still creeping around. Shu goes to the doctor, and then the doctor but the weird thing is the doctor knows that she's there to take care of Peg, but she's like, okay, well, I'm basically, this is like my debrief almost. I'm fucking off. So here's my notes. And then she looks at her notes, and they're all just like weird cryptic shit. Yeah.
And a bunch of stuff that says like, I won't bite you is written over a bunch of times. That's no good. So she obviously doesn't show the doctor that.
The framing in this scene is a little, I don't know. It's on the nose because Shu is sitting in the waiting room, and there's a bunch of posters around the waiting room, as you would in a healthcare professional. But the one that's positioned right next to her head is one that says "You're not alone. Mental health matters." It's just kind of like, all right. I don't need you
guys. It could be that. It could be that.
It could be that.
So she's heading back. Bunch of weird townspeople floating around. As she's on her way back as well, like she starts developing this like club foot, just like her foot starts turning sideways, and she starts developing this like club foot limp situation. She's got the dang her mom with the bag over her head. I should have mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned at the top of the show, but when her mom hung herself in the opening scene, she put a bag over her head. So when they keep seeing these visions, this woman with the bag over her head, it's her mom. And she's got like some sort of cloth. Imagine like a cotton bag with like almost like a drawstring like over her head. Meanwhile, Peg finds a bunch of medical records, and then she finally, I guess, makes the connection that Shu is her granddaughter. Yeah. So as she comes back, she's like, "Hey, did your mom have a dang old clubfoot?" And then, that's when they kind of make the connection. They're like, "Hey, you're my Grammy." And then she looks outside and she's starting to see all the dang basket heads, which it's a pretty interesting kind of like design, because once you see more of them, they have like different, the kind of different outfits and ceremonial garb and stuff on. But the main vision you're seeing of a lot of these guys, they have some sort of mask on. Sometimes they just have like a bag over their head with like some holes cut out. And then some other ones, they have this like, I don't know how to describe it. It's a cross between like a hat you would see in like some sort of like one of the hats from Big Trouble in Little China, but if like Pyramid Head made one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah. It's a weird kind of like it almost like wearing a hay bale as a hat.
Or like a basket of some sort of almost basket, but it's not really woven. It's just like a tethered together like basket over your head, but you can't see any of their facial features or anything. But then they're also wearing like a Men in Black suit. Yeah, everywhere, just like it's kind of strange.
Yeah, it's kind of the weird part of it. So I found this sort of doing research, and I can't make the full connection because I just don't know it well enough. But there's a tradition in Ireland. So all of the costume people, there's multiple costume people, but all of the costume people are, it's the mummers tradition of, that's why when we started, they're just kind of breaking into that wedding. And Peg's like, who invited them? And her husband is like, well, the point is that they're not invited. They just show up.
Yeah.
But the specific ones that we're talking about with kind of the woven basket type head is like this other tradition from St. Stephen's Day, which is called the Wren Hunt.
Yeah.
And it's like these guys who go out, they hunt a wren, and they're dressed like the whole basket woven look about it is like they're supposed to mimic a wren bush. So they hunt they hunt a wren, and then once they get it, they put it on a pole and then parade it through town. And then they're supposed to go and collect food and money and gifts from people in town. And then they hold a funeral with all the things they collect for the wren.
Yeah.
And then supposedly that brings by giving them food, money, and gifts, that gives you prosperousness in the coming year. And then the funeral itself is supposed to bring unmarried people together.
Yeah.
So I think that final bit about bringing unmarried people together has its ties to this film, because we're talking about how Mila and Shu aren't married yet, and they're relationship is on the rocks. So I think it's supposed to be a little bit tied to that. But like I said, I'm not Irish enough to fucking know it all.
No, that's great. That provides a lot of context, because I'm familiar a little bit with like the wren hunt thing, and also they have like, I mean, everywhere in like Western Europe has this a very similar thing where they wear wacky costumes, they go door to door, basically extorting people for food and money so they can have some sort of like party in town, the town square, basically fund the festival that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And this festival has something to do with prosperity in the new year. I know there's a Welsh version of this that I went down a YouTube or Wikipedia rabbit hole on one time. Like they all have this wacky shit where there's always ones where like they show up with like horse heads on. I think the Welsh one, they show up with horse heads or whatever. Yeah.
The Welsh one's the one with somebody wears like either a horse skull or a deer skull. And the whole thing is like, it comes to your house and recites a poem out your door, and you have to recite a poem back, or else you have to give it food or some shit like that. And the meme is, oh, you're telling me Welsh Christmas is you have to battle wrap a deer skeleton?
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. That's good context, because sometimes, especially when they are, down in the basement, the local weirdos just wear like the, I'll call it the scarecrow mask, and I mean Batman scarecrow. Whereas in other times they have the wren, like weird, like sticks and straw thing. But that makes sense that they would be doing that in this instance, because they want Mila and Shu to like carry out their relationship or whatever, because ultimately what they want from this, which we learn later, is they want a dang bebe, so anyway, but are they doing so are they working on behalf of the fairies then, or there's still a lot of unanswered questions, but
I think it's possible that some of them are the fairies. So I think
okay, that makes sense.
I think the ones with kind of the basket heads are the fairies, and the ones that have bags over their heads are just the townsfolk and probably work on behalf of the fairies. I'm sure we talked about this film in the past, but it's another one I suggest, and it's another one that I think has, a lot of the same themes in this film. But it's called Lord of Misrule.
I feel like you've mentioned that before, but I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's really fucking good though, and it has the father from the witch, and also he plays the priest in the First Omen. What's his name? Ralph something. But he has that real.
I would say Ralph Fiennes. That's not it, but that's what I want to say.
Ralph Innocent.
2023. Yeah,
Ralph Innocent.
Lord of Misrule. I don't think I've seen this, but maybe I have. Yeah, Ralph Innocent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm putting it on the list.
I think you would remember the ending if you'd seen it. It's got a good.
Okay, I probably haven't.
I think that film's a little more satisfying than this one.
All right.
As far as just like surface watching, you don't have to do as much homework as you do with this one. So
I gotcha. All right, back to the story. Basket heads are on the wood line watching into the house. The old gal from the agency shows back up. She's trying to come inside. Peg's like, don't do it. It ain't her. That ain't a person. And she keeps saying though, like, you can let me in. I won't bite. And then at that point, they're like, oh, it's definitely a dang fairy. And then she just keeps repeating it over and over. I won't bite you. I won't bite you. And she keeps saying it. And then you're like, okay, now it's getting real. The shit's getting heavy. Peg is like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to the basement. Basically, like almost like she's going to sacrifice herself to see if she can get all this to stop. She goes Peg starts going down the basement. Her husband, she sees her husband down at the bottom of the stairs, and it's 1973 husband, by the way, not aged. And he's just screaming silently, which is never a good thing. And then they basically just give her back. They just beat her up, bloody her up, and give her back because they're not interested in her. Shu, we talked about, gets like chased by all the, wacky folks in town. That we do also know there's a festival happening in town too. So again, in folk horror, when there's a festival, never ends up good for anybody. Really cool scene where Shu is like inside the door. She just gets back inside the door. And first of all, she pisses herself like near the front door. So I guess that like seals the front door in some capacity. I'm not really sure. But then as they kind of pan out or zoom out, all the dang wren heads are just like all grouped around the side windows. I thought that was a really cool scene.
Yeah.
With their dang weird basket heads. So they run upstairs. So they kind of a standoff where Peg and Shu are upstairs and they're hearing all this people coming into the house. They hear Maeve, who up until this point was just like really the only friendly townsperson who talked to her and like walked with her back to the house one day. She said it was her and the doctor are there, and they're trying to get Shu to open up the door and basically trying to get her to like not trust herself, and saying like, we have, mental health services for you. We can help you, blah, blah, blah. And Peg's like, don't open it. There's also this quick scene, which I'm not sure I guess I can make a guess, but I'm not 100% sure what we're supposed to glean from this. Is Shu sees herself in her mom's mirror. Like there was a mirror in the very first scene, and I think it even shows up in another flashback or something, where it's this like round, ring looking ass mirror in the kind of front room where she was seeing like this reflection of this like glowing red cross, but she sees her face in that mirror. And then it cuts to like obviously her hanged baghead mom like reaching out to her. And then she says like something about Mammy. And then just at that moment, Peg, like, it's like she gets this quick revelation where her eyes just like light up, like she just realized something. And then she grabs a doorknob that has essentially just one side of a doorknob. So it just has like the spike on one side that would go into the, the male end that would go into the female end on the other side of the doorknob. And she just sticks it right in her damn eye and just kills herself with a doorknob, which like, if somebody said to me, you got to, sorry, bad luck for you. You got to off yourself here, or we're going to like feed you to a colony of fire ants. Here are the things that you could choose from. I can't imagine there's very many things that I would pick below doorknob to off myself with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty extreme. This is, again, got to be some sort of like superstition that we don't know the full extent of. But we've already seen like earlier in the film, like all the mirrors are supposed to be covered up. And the cover falls off of this mirror for whatever reason, and Shu gets stuck into it. And she's looking into the past, seeing her mom, seeing the old apartment, seeing her mom, fucking hang herself. And I guess it's a way to break the spell and break the cycle of the mirror, because after Peg shoves the doorknob in her eye, we get this quick, like, jumbled montage that goes through her entire past life. And so we see we see everything from her life that she remembers. And then when we cut back, the mirror is like rocking back and forth on its own. So it must have been something that, like, once the mirror has an end, it can't, like, you know, Peg replaced herself in the mirror's power rather than Siobhan. But it's like I don't know. It's a tale, or it's some sort of folk tale that I don't know the full history of, or the full story, like why it breaks the spell, but it does.
Yeah. So now Shu hears Mila's voice at the door, and that's really obviously affecting her, but she's trying to talk herself into, like, hey, it's not really Mila. It's obviously the fairies or the entities that are trying to get her to open the door. And then all this crazy, like, cacophony of noise and screaming and Mila's voice and everything is happening. And she's just kind of at, like, her breaking point, like the crescendo of all this chaos. And then it all just kind of, like, stops very abruptly. And Shu leaves the room, walks down the stairs. I don't know if she sees it or maybe just we see it, but Mila's, like, engagement ring is on the banister. I think Shu does see it, but her engagement ring is on the banister. She goes outside and Mila's car is there. So then that tells us, like, oh no, it actually was her. Like, it wasn't just them imitating her.
Right.
So she goes back inside, and maybe that's when she sees the ring. I'm not sure, but there's a wedding dress hanging from the old lucky door to the basement. It swings open. It's kind of inviting Shu in. Now the dress is on her. I don't even think we see her put it on. Just like the dress is now on her. She takes the ring. She takes her ring off and then, like, goes down the stairs. So this is where we'll get through the end. We just have a couple more things here, but then I was confused about that move, about taking her ring off. But so the weird, cultist folks, bagheads, are hanging around in the basement. There's lots of, like, vines, or, I guess I want to describe them as, like, vines, like, hanging down from the ceiling. And it kind of progresses into a tunnel that then opens up into this, like, lush meadow, right? And Shu, in her wedding dress, is, like, walking along, like, hiking along this path up to the base of this big, tall, green hill. And we're seeing all these various, I don't know if they're actual fairies or cultists or whatever, but they have all these wacky ceremonial outfits on. And they put this, like, halo type of, almost Virgin Mary iconography looking, like, head adornment on her. And then we look at the top of the hill, and from a distance, there's just a dang old devil. Dang old demon, dang old devil, whatever the hell it is. Could just be one of the Fae people, we're not sure, but it's some, dang goat man, right, is up on top of the hill. And he's just kind of staring from a distance. He seems to be pretty pleased with what's happening. And then we cut back to Shu, and either, like, her eyes are bleeding or she seems to be crying blood. And then credits start to roll, but then we get a very interesting, like, mid-credit scene where Mila is in the house and she's at the door and she's speaking, I assume, Ukrainian, and she seems to be on the verge of making some sort of deal to get Shu back. So either she's going to offer herself up, or she's going to offer the baby up, or something. But they probably come for that baby, basically, is what we're determining at this point.
They come for the baby.
Yeah, they come for that baby. And that's it. So, I was kind of interested about, like, because the whole thing was, like, bringing them together. So a little bit of a twisty turny thing. And the way that I originally took it was, the whole time we're thinking that, obviously Shu's mom killed herself. Now Peg's dead. And now they're just after Shu, right, in her place.
Yeah.
But then we come to realize that perhaps now Shu is more in the role of, obviously one of the parents, and they're actually after, like, I think they're only after children is what it seems like. So they're just using Shu as a pawn to get after her and Mila's baby.
No, I don't think they're planning it in that way, but I think it's a deal they're willing to accept. Because okay, so if we at this point we're safe at accepting everything that happened is supernatural and not in Peg's head, and not
right.
Like, it's not the product of mental illness. It is dang old fairy people making crazy deals for lives and wives. So we go back to the original deal, which was that they were going to give up the daughter. The husband is giving up the daughter to get Peg back.
Yes.
But they broke that deal with the Fae people and sent the daughter to live with the Catholics. And
yes,
that's what gets the husband killed and Peg plagued for the rest of her life. After the mother kills herself, then we can assume that the deal moves on to Shu. So now she.
So that's what I. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why the wedding dress that we see at the very end is the same dress that she burns from her mom, but her mom's version was all yellowed.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the same dress, but okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same dress.
I was taking it as, well, and also the other question mark I thought it was like, hey, Peg's dead, the mom's dead, new deal here. You are going to be, and that's why they basically gave her the dress, gave her the, which I guess now I know that it's the same dress. Maybe this kind of makes it less likely, but I was like, oh, now you got to be dang old Goat Boy's bride. and that's why she took off the ring. Because the thing that's sticking in my craw that's confusing me is, why did she take off her ring?
See, I think she only put it on for a second. Like, I think that was actually Mila's ring that she left on the banister. Because she does pick it up off the banister, but I don't think they didn't have like a close-up shot of her putting it on her hand. But she does kind of in that moment, by her taking that wedding ring off and putting on the wedding dress, she's accepting this is her new marriage rather than, trying to be with Mila. So she, Shu is essentially just trying to close the loop on everything that's going on. But what, we don't see, what she doesn't see is that now Mila is making the bargain, and it's a bargain that they'll take.
Bring her back.
They'll obviously take somebody younger than, But
So that makes sense. So she's basically like, hey, they fucked up. They went back on the deal. Now I'm the one who ultimately has to, and Peg had to, off herself with the doorknob to deal with the whatever's happening with the mirror. So now it's all up to me. I gotta make good on the deal, if you will. But them sneaky fairies, they're gonna put Mila in a position to make another deal. So, Anyway, moral of the story: don't trust them dang woodland fairies.
Don't trust fairies. They are tricksy at best. At best.
Yeah. At best. All right. So I don't know. After, you still kind of feel like it was a little too homeworky for you, a little too cryptic.
Yeah, no, it's still too much damn homework for me when I'm sick. In my entitled soft boy state where I just want to watch dumbass media. Yeah, like, look, on the higher level, I recognize that it's a really well put together film. And I already mentioned everything, all the reasons why it's really well put together. It's got great cinematography. It's got great production design. Everything's good. I just didn't want to have to work this hard. And
yeah,
I will say the film is far more atmospheric than anything, but it does attempt a few jump scares, and none of the jump scares work.
Yeah, I guess the only one I can think of off the top of my head was old lady banging on the glass very early on. I'm sure there are other ones I can't think of, but I didn't think of this as a very jump scare heavy.
No, it's not a jump scare heavy film. It's just when it does attempt jump scares, they don't work. And obviously they don't work because you don't even remember them. There's one.
No, I don't remember.
When Shu is in her dream state and she goes to the wake house in her dream and sees her mom in the coffin, there's her mom like comes back to life and grabs her hand, and like that's supposed to be a jump scare.
Yes, but when she's out in the wake house.
Yeah, and I think when she's doing the clubfoot walk back to the house, and her baghead mom appears behind her, I think that's kind of like an attempt at a jump scare with the framing, but it just, none of it really like has that shock value to it. And they don't try to set them up as like the standard jump scares of like huge music stings that are supposed to, it's just kind of like, something spooky. And you go, all right. Something spooky's happening. Yeah. The whole movie's been spooky the whole time. It's all spooky.
Yeah. I'm just saying, This Steve entitled Soft Boy, not making a great case for you being the leader dog when we're exploiting money from people.
Not this week, no. I don't want to be in charge.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm in agreement. I'm at half power. I don't want to do stuff. I don't want to fucking read. I don't want to learn how to pronounce goof ass Gaelic words. I'm not trying to read 17th or 18th century fucking history about folklore leaders. And that's all in this film. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of that shit. And it's like, I don't spell it out for me, movie. I'm stupid and congested.
I'm on cough medicine.
Yeah.
I will say a couple reasons why I thought this would be very relevant. Obviously, a lot of people were talking about because it just hit Shudder, and I think a lot of people are getting eyes on it for the first time. Two, also Mother's Day coming up right around the corner. And this is some metal ass mom shit. And then also, as Dan just mentioned in the chat, I feel like with the Pope dying, we should really lean into as much Catholic horror as possible, right? Just trying to push towards the next Pope. And I don't know how, I know it's a whole thing. They got to figure out who the next Pope is. But I think this is one of the best opportunities that we're going to get to kill God. Is if we can get in there and try to figure out how to weasel an Antichrist Pope in there, that's a sick opportunity to murder God.
Hell yeah. I think that's
just saying. These opportunities don't come around that long.
No,
they only come around a couple out every 15 years. How often does one of these popes keel over? Last time was in the early 2000s. This guy's been around.
Yeah, but that one just quit too. Like he died later.
Yeah, that guy.
He just quit.
That's true. You're right. I forgot about that. He did just quit. It was too stressful for him. That guy was talk about entitled soft boy.
Yeah,
that was about the dang softest pope we ever had.
Yeah,
and I say we like I'm Catholic at all, but still.
I mean, it's a we in a sense that we're all inflicted by the Catholic Church. We're all inflicted by all of that. Like at this point, we've only had 3 popes in our lives, because we had Pope John Paul, and then...
Oh, he was there for a hot sec. Yeah.
Pope John Paul was there forever, because I think the pope before him died in the 50s, and then like there's a meme been going around about somebody Google searching which pope exploded, and it was the one I think that preceded Pope John Paul II, because when they went to embalm his body, he was still all full of gases and he fucking blew up. So that pope exploded. But yeah, we've only had Pope John Paul II. Then we had, I forget what was it Pope Benedict? But his ass was like, he was part of the Hitler Youth. Mm-hmm. And then
he was a Hitler Youth guy.
Yeah, he was a Hitler Youth, so that's not great.
And then he got all stressed out and quit, though.
Right, yeah. Because he's like, oh yeah, everybody knows I'm Hitler Youth and nobody likes me and nobody wants to pay attention to me. And then we just had Pope Francis.
Guess I'll go eat worms.
Guess I'll go eat worms. Nobody likes me. I'm going to quit being Pope.
If you guys don't even want me to be Pope, I don't even want to be Pope.
Did you see one of the guys that's in the running is a cardinal named Pizza Balla?
No, I did not. I am imagining immediately, I'll tell you where my brain went. Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs with a big old Pope hat on. That's what I saw. That's
what I see in my brain too when I hear it. Yeah. His name is Pizza Balla. And apparently there's a good chance he might be Pope, because he's like he's pretty much in line with what's his fucking face, Francis. He's up and down kind of the same as Francis.
Yeah, they seem to like him. That it seemed to be that was the direction they were trying to go. So, hey, Pizza Bola, I like that. That sounds like a disease that you get that makes you fucking radical. You get Pizza Bola.
Pizza Balla. I know it's my congestion. It's not Pizza Ebola. It's Pizza Balla.
I heard, Steve. I heard what you said. I choose to hear it as Pizza Bola. Sick ass pizza disease. Pepperonis grow in your face. You become fucking tubular. All right. Once again, join us next week because we are going to do a little showdown situation. Pope CC's. I'm just reading chat nonsense here. We are going to do the absolute dog shit dregs of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I'm going to do Dream Master from 88. Steve's going to do Final Nightmare from 90. And then we'll see what our Patreon friends pick, because they ain't got much to pick from. Probably going to be 2 or 2010. I think that's about all that's left.
Yep.
So join us for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Anything else? Any final thoughts before we sign off for this here minisode?
I don't know. I think I've had one, but I lost it, and it's not a big deal. I got to talk about fucking Pizza Pope, and that's all I care about.
Pizza Pope. There's gonna be some sick ass shirts. If Pizza Pope happens,
Pizza Pope's
there's gonna be some
roll.
sick ass shirts.
Yeah,
it's gonna be memes aplenty. All right. For the Halloween is Forever crew, I'm Brian.
And I'm Pope CC's.
I'm Pizza Pope.
I'm Pizza Pope.
Tubular. All right, bye.